In other news, Netanyahu is being accused of using state funds to repair his private pool. You heard that right. The pool is part of his estate in the coastal city of Caesarea, and it was being polished and repaired as Israeli soldiers were fighting in Gaza. At whose cost, you ask? Well, the state's. And what was wrong with the private pool? Apparently, there were some leaks and the steps needed fixing. The repair request was made before the war broke out, but the go-ahead was given after the 7th of October. So what was the hurry? Was Netanyahu so stressed because of the war that he urgently needed an upgraded pool to relax? Haaretz reports that the chief accountant at the Prime Minister's office objected to the renovation. There were clashes, a series of them, between the accountant and the PMO. But that did not stall anything. And why is that? Well, the reasons being cited are laughable at best and insulting at worst. A source told Haaretz that maintenance work was, quote-unquote, security-related. What if Netanyahu slipped? What if the leak drained all the water out of the pool? Just tell me one thing. Couldn't this have waited? In Israel, families of hundreds of hostages have been waiting for 4 months now, but work on Netanyahu's private pool could not wait. Why? Another reason being given is cost. Apparently, if the issues in the pool would have been left unattended, the cost would have become tenfold. This is deplorable. The war in Gaza is reportedly costing Israel some $269 million a day. And here, the private pool's renovation cannot wait. Why is the state paying for a private pool in the very first place? Those who have been following Netanyahu and his wife Sarah's lifestyle should not be surprised. In the past, Sarah Netanyahu has been accused of buying furniture under the pretext that it is for the Prime Minister's official residence in Jerusalem. And she then reportedly had them moved to the couple's Caesarea private home. And the old furniture from this house was moved to the official residence in Jerusalem. During Netanyahu's corruption hearing, one of the witnesses detailed how Sarah Netanyahu repeatedly tried to have the private pool in Caesarea renovated at the state's expense. Netanyahu obliged. In the year 2015, in fact, Israeli media reported that the couple had asked for public funds to cover the cost of food for a dog the Netanyahus had adopted. That dog, named Kaya, by the way, went on to bite 2 guests at Netanyahu's Hanukkah party the same year. Ever since Netanyahu's first term in office, his and Sarah's private household have been the talk of the town. Sarah was accused of firing an employee for burning a pot of soup. Reports claim she also threw a pair of shoes at an assistant. In the year 2020, the couple's lifestyle became a laughing stock. The Netanyahus were accused of taking dirty laundry to state visits in order to get them dry cleaned at the host country's expense. Apparently, they were carrying suitcases after suitcases of dirty clothes. After hosting the couple a few times, the staff at the White House noticed the trend and leaked the dirty secret to the US media. And in the past, Sarah Netanyahu has been convicted of spending nearly $100,000 on catering from expensive restaurants between 2010 and 2013, despite having an in-house cook whose salary, by the way, was paid by the state. Clearly, this is a pattern of misusing the office and its perks in every possible manner. But you know what? The Netanyahus could have spared these shenanigans at least during wartime. WION now available in your country. Download the app now. Get all the updates on the move. US President Joe Biden has said that he is hopeful for a Gaza ceasefire within a week. Now, his comment suggests that the war is close to a major turning point. Biden has said that Israel has agreed not to engage in military activities in Gaza during the holy Muslim month of Ramadan, set to begin on the 10th of March. But just how close are we really to a ceasefire is the question. Who are the players who could potentially block it next week? And what does the draft truce proposal even entail? What do we know? Let's dig deeper. Here's what Joe Biden assured today. He says that a ceasefire deal could come as soon as next week. Biden's comments, recorded on Monday and broadcast on Tuesday, come as negotiators try to hammer out the first extended truce deal in a war that has completely obliterated the Gaza Strip since the 7th of October. Earlier on Monday, Biden said he hoped a ceasefire would come by Monday. That is the 4th of March. And we have seen some momentum building, at least in terms of meetings between the stakeholders. The mediators, including the US, seem hopeful for a breakthrough in the current situation. It seems they are inching towards a deal. But you see, there is still plenty of room for skepticism, for pessimism, mostly from the side of Israel. There seem to be positive signs of progress, considering Israel was part of the talks that took place in Paris last week, where the current truce offer was agreed upon. It was attended by Israel, the United States, and mediators from Egypt and Qatar. Considering the way the last truce collapsed in November after a week, this is the most serious push for a ceasefire since then. Yet, Israel has confirmed that they are close to accepting the deal. Now, as far as Hamas is concerned, well, they are not as optimistic as the mediators. In fact, they have called Biden's remarks premature. They are currently reviewing the truce offer. You see, they are not satisfied. They claim that there are still significant gaps that need to be bridged. Now, you must be wondering, what does this truce offer propose? We have access to details, and here's what it entails. First and foremost, it offers a 40-day pause and the exchange of Palestinian prisoners for Israeli hostages at a ratio of 10-1. The proposal also suggests that both parties stop their military operations completely. Aerial reconnaissance operations over Gaza will stop for 8 hours a day. All Israeli hostages, including women, children, elderly, and the sick, must be released in exchange for a specific number of Palestinian prisoners. Further, there will be a gradual return of all displaced civilians, except men of military service age, to the northern Gaza Strip. The truce offer proposes that after commencing the first phase, Israel will reposition its forces away from densely populated areas in the Gaza Strip. There will be a commitment to allow 500 trucks per day of humanitarian aid into the Palestinian enclave. Rehabilitation of hospitals and bakeries in Gaza will be allowed, including the entry of fuel for these purposes. And lastly, Israel will have to agree to the entry of heavy machinery and equipment to remove the rubble and assist with other humanitarian purposes in Gaza. On the other hand, Hamas will have to pledge to not use these machines and equipment to threaten Israel. Now, these are the conditions proposed for the first phase of ceasefire. So the question is, what is stopping Hamas from jumping on it? You see, the offer appears to stop short of Hamas's main demands. For them, a ceasefire must include a commitment for a permanent end to the war and Israeli withdrawal from Gaza. And currently, the truce offer does not cover Hamas's demand for as many as 1,500 detainees to be freed. Moreover, the release of Israeli hostages who are soldiers or healthy men of fighting age, also finding no mention in the offer. In Gaza, there are mixed feelings about the prospect of a truce. They want permanent end to the war, and why shouldn't they want anything less than permanent ceasefire? Nearly 30,000 Gazans have been killed in Israeli bombardment. Over 70,000 people have been injured. The Palestinian enclave has been left to ruins.
We hope it will be a permanent ceasefire. We don't want to go back to war because war after the first truce destroyed us and destroyed our houses. It's been 3 months that we are displaced. We are tired from migration. This is a migration. We are staying in nylon tents, can you imagine? There is no food, no drink, there are no basics of life. We hope for a permanent ceasefire and we go to our places. It's true, there are no houses. but we hope to go back to our places. We don't want to stay displaced. This is our only hope.
If the truce is like the previous one and they would start war again after it is over, we don't want it. And if we can't go to the north, then a truce is not needed. Let's keep the war until it is totally over. We want a permanent ceasefire, not a truce after which they start the war again. This is all useless. And if there would be a truce, how will we go according to the age they specified? How do we take the children? We can't leave our children behind and move. We need to bring them with us.
I hope from God that there will be a commitment to a truce so people can catch their breath and heal their wounds, and so we reduce the daily casualties. There are 150 to 200 martyrs daily among the people. This is huge loss for our people, youth, men and women.
And so while delegations from Hamas and Israel, both in Qatar this week, discussed the ceasefire plan, the reality is there are several gaps that need to be bridged. The mediators look very optimistic, but if it was us reading the tea leaves, both Israel and Hamas may end up blocking this deal as it stands right now. You see, it's not just Hamas. Even Israel is adamant as far as its demands are concerned. The Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has rejected as delusional an earlier Hamas counter-offer for a ceasefire. In the earlier offer, Hamas had suggested that all hostages would go free when Israel withdraws from Gaza, and an agreement would be reached on an end to the war. But Netanyahu is adamant. There will be no halt in the war until Hamas is eradicated. And this is despite Biden's warning that Israel could lose international support unless it takes more steps to spare civilians. But the international pressure does not seem to bother Netanyahu. He has been threatening to attack Rafah, the last city on the southern edge of the Gaza Strip, where over half of its 2.3 million residents are sleeping rough in makeshift tents or buildings. The U.S. has warned that it opposes this plan. In fact, the U.S. says Israel must take into account the safety of Palestinians. But a brazen Netanyahu has declared total victory is our goal, quote unquote. On Monday, Netanyahu called Hamas's demands as from another planet. He says that the ball is in Hamas's court. They have to accept Israel's latest offer, and that is where the two sides stand at the moment. And this brings us to a bigger question. Because the war does not just affect Gaza and Israel, it has impact across West Asia. Even if there is a ceasefire in Gaza, will the war against the Houthis end? Today, the Lebanese armed group Hezbollah struck Israeli spy equipment at Al-Ramta and Rovesat al-Alam sites in Sheba Farms. It's an area claimed by Lebanon but captured by Israel in the 1967 war. Hezbollah also said it hit an air control base in Mount Meron in northern Israel. They say this was in response to Israel's airstrike on the vicinity of Baalbek on Monday. And the Israeli army responded by carrying out strikes against the Hezbollah sites in southern Lebanon. The recent escalation in the exchange of fire between Israel and Hezbollah now has the potential to put at risk a political solution to the Gaza conflict. Thousands of miles away, the Yemen-based rebel group Houthis are keeping the pressure on the U.S. Over the weekend, Houthis' missile missed a U.S.-flagged oil tanker in the Gulf of Aden. The Iran-aligned group has stepped up attacks on ships. Since November, repeated Houthi drone and missile strikes in the Red Sea and Bab al-Mandab Strait have heightened risks to international shipping. And this is their way of showing solidarity with the Palestinians in Gaza. U.S. and British forces have responded with several strikes on Houthi facilities, but have so far failed to halt the attacks. As you can see, it's no longer about regional stability. International peace and stability are at risk. It is high time that a ceasefire in Gaza comes into play It is, after all, in everyone's best interest. A ceasefire will reduce the risk of violence spreading further across the region. It will prevent further suffering, pain, and loss of life. Can the stakeholders set aside their vested interests and work towards achieving peace? Let's hope so. WION now available in your country. Download the app now. Get all the updates on the move. In today's so-called hustle culture, how often have you heard people talking about taking it easy, cutting themselves some slack? How important is it for you to take a break? Well, let me tell you about what happened recently. Nitin Kamath, the co-founder of online stock trading app Zerodha, recently posted on the platform X that he had suffered a mild stroke a few weeks back. He is 44 years old, and according to him, the reason could be one of a few. His father had recently passed away. He was getting poor sleep, working out too much, felt dehydrated at times. Soon after Nitin put the news out, wishes started pouring in. Fellow entrepreneur Ashnir Grover advised him to take a break and admitted that he had himself collapsed one day soon after his father's demise. The words, "take a break," have struck a chord with many. And the need to address this seriously is the need of the hour. Nitin Kamath is not the first person in his 40s to have had a stroke. Many other CEOs, entrepreneurs, people even younger than him have fallen prey to strokes and heart attacks, some even sadly fatal. In a fast-paced and competitive work environment, many of us don't pay heed to the need for rest, the need to switch off, the need to engage in something completely different from work. For most people, taking a break means going on a holiday or a vacation. But is that really all that we need? Sometimes the logistics of organizing and planning a vacation are equally as stressful. Hence, one hears many say that they need a vacation after a vacation. Taking a break simply means listening to your body and taking time off to relax, unwind, or do nothing at all, simply. This could be for a day, or a few days, or even a few weeks if required. But are workplaces recognizing this? Australia, in fact, was in the news recently for its proposal to pass a law called the right to disconnect, which will basically allow the employees the choice to not answer calls or emails after their working hours are over without being penalized in any way for it. While some companies across the world have become sensitive to the mental and physical needs of their employees, many still follow a demanding regime with little space for personal space. In fact, he went on to say in his post on the platform X that he was surprised that this happened to him, given that he exercises regularly and takes good care of himself. His doctor told him that it is really about knowing when to cut back on things. And that, you see, is the key. Being glued into work all the time and the anxieties around it can subtly chew away at us without us even realizing it. The importance of taking a break is something that needs to be incorporated into our work culture firmly. And in the long run, it only boosts productivity. WION now available in your country. Download the app now. Get all the updates on the move.